So Peter Swimm is a conversational AI pioneer and founder of Toyville LLC, and he has similar interests in optimizing workflows through AI with his experience in creating innovative tools like BotKit and Microsoft Copilot Studio. Peter has engaged with over 5,000 AI enthusiasts, founders, and entrepreneurs, and it's great to have you here. Peter, tell us a little bit more about who you are.
Sure. So I've been in tech my entire adult life, and kind of sad if you say it like that, but it's been very unique ride for me, because I started out kind of in the support world and like working and helping people at like adjacent things like, the vitamin shop. And then I kind of stumbled into this world of conversational AI, because conversational AI is like, for me, when I was at an early startup, was a way for a single support person to handle 500 emails a day without hating his job and everything about it, right? And you can take kind of like technology to scale the thing, like press Alt F4 to reboot, and only talk to people about hard problems or work people longer on harder problems. And so I was accused of being a bot before there was chatbots. Like people go into communities like, Peter answered every email within 5 minutes, and he's a horror. All he does is just same answer to everyone. It's like, yeah, because same problem from everyone. So we try to fix it. And that kind of led me into, I had a startup in the teens in Austin called BotKit. And BotKit was a day one supporter of the Slack API. And so the Slack API is pretty useless without the ability to like do webhooks and, get real-time data from your database or your WordPress post and all that fun stuff. And so BotKit was able to have a conversational interface, and we had like Howdy was the name of our chatbot. It was the number one bot because there was only 8 bots for the first year of Slack's life. And, like that really taught me a lot about how conversation works in text. Like I've been using IRC my whole life. I've been, on Usenet and dealing with trolls and cool people and meeting people around the world. And there's art and science of interfacing with people in a computer without the social emotional cues that I found really fascinating. So long story short, I worked at Walmart, I worked at Microsoft Copilot just in time to see LLMs take over the world and make things better and worse at the same time. And now I've started my own consultancy where I help small and medium-sized businesses make smart choices about automation, and whether or not that's throw your credit card down and pay for ChatGPT Max or whatever, or never use it, or it's a personal journey for each person. Yeah. So I help people do that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason why we're talking is because about a week or two ago, I put out a video on how to actually use ChatGPT to create WordPress plugins. And I've been doing plugins. This just last week, I created an extension for Adobe Photo or Premiere Pro, which allowed me to do a little Ken's burn effects in video rather than in photos. So it would make my journey with video editing a little bit better. And so we're finding that you could do a lot of base code editing, kind of like the script kiddies from 15 years ago, where people can just get in and create something that they really want and be able to get it out in the public. But there's always going to be security risks on that. But the core idea is all the plugins that I do are basically fairly security free because they're all internal. They're doing something like calling YouTube videos or anything like that and bringing those plugins in. How much experience have you had in using AI to create any type of code, or have you been contributing to the AI code base?
Yeah, so earlier this summer, I did the opposite of like a juice cleanse and did an AI week where I only used AI tools to see what it was like. And it was an incredibly toxic, harrowing experience. And I came out of it with 3,000 new software applications, and my wife was mad at me. And a bunch of other things fell out of being completely antisocial for a week and just vibing my way through life. But I learned something is that the code doesn't work unless someone's there to have the shape of the bottle to pour the water into, right? And we already kind of have this system in place. Software has linters and there's standards for WordPress and there's best practices, but these coding models come out of the box to like brute force their way to make a good demo, right? So what I learned in my vibe coding week is that these things out of the box are like brute force, surface pros that are meant to impress you with how smart they are, but they're not good employees. They're not good helpers. They don't follow the rules. It's very hard to get something that's a repeatable process. So, and it matches really strongly what I tell my clients is, you have to be the one in charge. You have to write, you can't have something sounding like Sam Altman's bot. You have to write something that sounds like your bot. And so for coding, it's probably the safest thing to do because coding is kind of like unopinionated language. And you may argue, like if you're going to like, Hacker News or whatever, but like their code works or it doesn't work, right? Like there's no there's no way to do, you can write bad English and people can understand it, but you can't write bad code and have machines understand it. And so that's a really good start, like autocomplete for things like that or human assisted tasks. AI is perfectly useful for that. Now, at the cost that it has for like the safety and the environment, it's arguable that it shouldn't be the first thing you use, right? And so in our system in my company now, AI is the last resort. So we use AI to train errors. So when code fails or like when processes don't work, then we use AI to improvise a solution. And then we take all the improvised solutions at the end of the day and we say, why do we have to improvise this? Do we need a new feature? Or do we need like a new task master to control this realm of features? And we turn that into code. And so once I started using this, I cut down my AI usage 80% because now I pre-filter the things that go to the AI. So it only gives AI very strict instructions that it's supposed to do. And I filter everything coming out that is like the wrong kind of result. Like if it's, I want to make a Python script or a PHP script and it comes out like JavaScript and it'll just send it back or convert it or whatever. So this is how you get rid of hallucinations, right? Because it doesn't know it's doing things wrong because you didn't give it the right prompt. So I think this is kind of like bad for OpenAI, right? Because you can use cheaper, smaller models to do this kind of work. But it's good for you and me because now we have a cop on our machine that keeps things from going out to Mark Zuckerberg's house, so.
I'd love to be out at Mark Zuckerberg's house, definitely. But I find that it's more of the fact that ChatGPT and Gemini, they're always going forward and they kind of drop the ball. It's like a kid that drops his toys as he's running towards the next toy. And you have to tell him, hey, we still need that part that is inside this code. We still need that to function while we're adding new code right here. And I just see AI as something that doesn't really take a look at what it did to create what it's going to create. And so if you say add widget 1 and widget 2, it might completely forget to add widget 1, add widget 2. And you say, well, what about widget 1? And then it comes back and says, oh, okay, well, we'll add widget 1. And all of a sudden widget 2 is no longer there. And so those are the little nuances that I'm finding in doing any type of coding using AI, whether it be bringing in code and having them fix it, or whether having them do one from scratch. Have you seen that same results?
Yeah, but like I said, those 3,000 programs I talked about that were invented, it was actually 30 programs over and over again, and they took those 3,000. So it took those 3,000 programs and whittle it down to 30. And then I did kind of like a human think. It's like, well, that's really only 3 programs, right? There's like the think activities, the code gen activities, and, the source of truth activities. And so now I have a AI agent that uses zero AI. I think we talked before the call about this, all logic patterns is just math, right? And it's the human element that decides whether or not it's math for good or math for bad. And so like when you're, so I'm basically just still making slash commands in Slack. The first day of Slack, you do a little command that reboot the server and you call it like, table flip, and table flip would reboot the server. And, that's computer science, right? You don't, instead of typing a huge terminal command every day, now I could just like poke a button that reboots the server. So, and I think this was kind of like the lost promise of like I don't want to pay Sam Altman $200 a month to click a button that's connected to a long contraption of Rube Goldberg devices that flips eggs and burns the planet up to reboot the server.
Yeah.
When I do it every day,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and computer science have solved that problem for decades of how to make a script. So why don't I just use AI to I want to learn how to use Rust. I want to learn how to use a programming language I don't know, or I want to work with a coworker in another language.
Yeah.
And how do we normalize the layer of the communication between us? And AI could be helpful for that. But I don't want it to paint Hawaiian sunset for me. I want to go to Hawaii and paint my own Hawaiian sunset, right? So I think this is kind of the thing is and I use AI coding over this project this weekend to revive a dead WordPress site because the people abandoned the plugins and I didn't have the wherewithal or the time to go in and fix things for later PHP versions. And I just went through it and it brute forced its way and upgraded everything and it just works. And it's it's not a redesign. It didn't touch any content. It just did all that webmastery stuff that I'd never had time to prioritize. And to me, that's a huge win, right?
Yeah. Do you think that that's going to help or hurt in the future for programmers that, because before it's you had to slave over that code, but at least you're keeping yourself familiar with the lines, with what it's saying. Now it's okay, write me this script. And then you could peruse over it and say, okay, there's a semicolon here or whatnot that needs to be replaced. But for the most part, it, after about, let's say, 1,000 different programs, you start to try and write a code on your own without the help of AI. Would you be able to continue to do that, or would you forget the fundamentals, or have to relearn the fundamentals? Because they say it's just like riding a bike, but you still have to get on the bike and pedal and understand all that. But it comes back quicker. But will you be able to remember all that?
I think if a person is interested in running a blog, they should need a degree in computer science, right? And if the job they want to replace is that of webmaster, in a way that they're still doing the best practices, I think that's okay, because I'm not Meta putting 20,000 people out of business when I'm running my personal hobby website that I've been meaning to get to, but because it doesn't generate income and it doesn't keep my children fed, I haven't got to it. And I think there's users of the AI that are if it was really important to me to have the craftsmanship and the artisanal nature of being a computer programmer, which it isn't, like I said, I've been working on computers since I was 10 years old. Yeah. I can't program without Stack Overflow one click away, right? I'm just not, I don't have that brain. I'm a product person. And, I work with programmers, and I think we are part of the Montessori family that's running the AI. You're not going to let AutoGen happen. You're not going to let WordPress decide it needs a new plugin or develop a new thing, right? It's all human directed, but the actual mechanical labor of designing the thing and acting how it works and the process of which the factory assembly lines it is still very human oriented. So I think that's what these big companies are missing, is they want to have the CEO sitting on an ocean of AI on top and pushing buttons and work bubbling up and money coming down. Okay. And I think the story has to flip around.
Yeah. Yeah. Another good point that you made was cross coding. You might know Python, somebody else might know C++, and you want to take a Python script and turn it into something for a different code. So using AI, and in your case, you were using AI and the person that you were collaborating with to create a code that would work for both of you. Do you see that being useful in, especially when, maybe someday we'll stop using Python, or someday we'll stop using COBOL for mainframes or whatnot?
Yeah. Well, and you're already kind of seeing this, right? Because OpenAI came out with Operator, and Operator is just basically someone hooked up a VNC client to a vision model, and it's just clicking through your mouse and doing things. So you can just hook up one of those old 60s mainframes via the terminal connection to an AI that will turn it into Rust commands. And so you can restfully hit like some 60-year-old mainframe with 1K of RAM. And, like, you're like, well, that's kind of weird. Why don't you just have AI scan the entire memory footprint of the mainframe and run it in an emulator? And I think like that's just kind of like, this is like to a hammer, everything is a nail kind of things.
Yeah.
And I think if you flip it around and give these tools to people who are mainframe developers and stuff, they'll find use cases for it that maybe are not unicorn exit revenue generators, but they're like way more aligned with the process of running a business or being a creative person.
And at least it'll get you to 70 to 75% there. You might still need a coder to come in to kind of work out the T's and I's and get that to work swimmingly. So, and as you mentioned that, I thought to myself, because in the last couple of weeks they talked about how Commodore 64 is making a comeback, and I'm not exactly sure how they're doing that, if they're actually bringing the base Commodore 64 system back in or not. But I started thinking to myself, could AI, well, I know it can, but does it have the capacity at this point in time? Does it have the LLM in there to actually say, so if I say, write me a Commodore 64 program, will it be able to do that?
Yes, absolutely. And like the cool thing is the internet was open for a good 15 years, and there's GitHub repos and there's things like, I'm out to you unlocking a secret ability of mine that I did not advertise to you, but I'm part of like people who make music and old video game systems. So you can run an entire Commodore 64 emulator in the footprint of a ChatGPT prompt, no problem. And the answer is like, why would you want to? Or it's like crazy, but people do crazy things in tech all the time. And I think why would you want to even like make music on old game hardware? And I think it's because you like the aesthetic and you like the approach, and you know how to use one tool and you don't know how to use the other tool. And I think it's fine if it's in a harmless way, if it's not like causing an accredited harm to someone. You're not taking there's no C64 developers out there that are like going hungry because of AI C64 emulators. And I think like
absolutely,
and I think like there's like there's a personal approach to everything. Like I talked to a client who sells insurance, and he uses like 9 website services to like book meetings and do Zoom calls and put stuff in databases and send quotes to vendors. And it's just like, it's the worst part of his business. And the best part of his business is like, he's a small team of 5 people, and they give really personal time to people and answer all their questions and all that. Right. Yeah. And so, if the value of his business is like his personal touch, why don't he needs more time to like give personal touch and less time copying and pasting stuff from an Excel into a WordPress into whatever, right?
Absolutely. So, we're talking with Peter Swimm, from an AI pioneer and founder from Toyville LLC. Interesting that you mentioned that, because I did dabble a little bit in the last month on N8N and some of these schedulers that will create images, they'll create video, they'll be able to put voiceovers over and then slap it out, what they're calling AI slop now, into YouTube. And of course, this is more than just that. I mean, you could do a lot of scripting to create spreadsheets, to create processes, to even do programming for when it's needed. And how would you bring that in, or would you tell a client if they came up with the situation you just talked about? How would you introduce something like that into their workflow?
I think first thing I need to do when people think about AI automated stuff is I try to really find out how they work today. Right. And I think like, and they'll tell you very quickly what they like about their job and what they hate about their job, just like the previous example. And almost no one will say, what I really hate about, being an independent artist is all the painting and drawing, And so it's funny that they, like they want to have the time to do the bills and work out the contracts and all that stuff. And so why did they go straight for the creatives with these AI tools? And that's why everyone is so much lustily booing the downfall of Meta and Microsoft and all the world, because there's no value prop that is like recognizable to a human person who likes to live. Like no one wants to make 500 spreadsheets a day. Yeah. It's cool that it helps you make spreadsheets. And like, I've been in corporate hell where you have to make a spreadsheet and then turn it into a Word, then turn it into a PowerPoint, then turn it into a SharePoint page. And to be able now finally Copilot to just click a button and it just shows up everywhere in the more or less the correct formatting is awesome, because that's like not what's fun about work, is like artifact generation and stuff. And I can still write stuff, and I don't have to go through 80,000 Teams logs to like get the minutes of the meeting and all that stuff. Like arguably super valuable. But then they turn around and say, well, the 3 hours you save a day from that means we can fire every third of you, because now we're just going to make you work more with the same tools, and you'll pick up the slack from the two people we just laid off. And I think that's like, like people aren't buying that, and it's not making people excited about, yay, my company got Copilot, because now, they know everything I do. They know what meetings I went to and what I said and who said what and how many edits I made on the Word document. And it's just like, it's like a nightmare, it's not like how people want to use these tools.
That does bring us to the next question, and that is internal LLMs for coders. So you have a shop that does nothing but coding, and you have these employees that signed documents saying that, what they do on their time is the company's product. So they'll start companies could start collecting their codes, and then be able to use them for whatever and put them into their LLM. So a couple of years down the line, when somebody's actually doing some sort of coding for a different program, their code might show up in there. Do you think that's a ethical conundrum? Because is it something where, just because you're getting paid to build code, does that mean that they can use the code here, 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 and here? Because I know with like photography and video, I tell people you can use this video here, but you've got a limited license on it. And if you try to use it 2 years from now, then we're going to have a new conversation.
Yeah. And you can even take that farther. Like, what if the cool startup you work for, you leave in 2 years because you need to move to a different city, and then your project is bought by the Israeli army, or like some other like political entity that you didn't think would ever happen. And I think this is really important thing of like, in open AI world, where the models are closed and you have no idea where anything came from, it's completely possible, and it's totally happening, where like, and I've seen this in enterprise where like I make a really nice deck and I see it kind of echo throughout other executives' decks for months, because it's just sitting in the SharePoint and it's company property, and that's what the game is. You're Jack Kirby at Marvel in 1965, right? And you're just making all the stuff and you have no idea they're going to be billion-dollar movies in 40 years, and
AI is starting to draw Jack Kirby comics. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, no, they're drawing simulations of Jack Kirby comics. Jack Kirby, you know what I mean? And I think like the certain like, and I always cringe when I see like AI film festivals, and it's just like, have you once seen a movie? Like this is like some DMT fever dream, not a movie. Like there's an intentionality to like artistry and filmmaking that I've never seen in generative AI until I started processing my system and I trained it only on my writing, and like. Okay. Then it stopped doing all those like emoji things and, all the things, the cliches that people have about AI driven writing is totally because OpenAI is making an opinion about what a Chicago style versus AP style guide and, Oxford commas and whatever. And it's just like, that's what AI slop is. It's like this like blurry of culture. And if you don't have humans like auditing and reviewing the situation, you get things like getting yelled at court by a judge because your AI lawyer like invented stuff that never has no case law history or whatever. And
Good reference right there. Yeah. And I'm calling, I've been calling it, because we had script kitties, so I'm calling it AI kitties now for anybody that's just going into AI and creating something and saying, it's mine. Yeah, and I've done that a couple times myself. But the whole point is that I can still read through the code and say, I know how to fix this and I can fix this, and I've added a couple things to it. But it's definitely something that we need to look at. If you were to be in the ear of Sam Altman or any of these other top AI creators, and when it came to coding in the next 5 years, what would you like to see these programs do?
Well, if I'm whispering in Sam Altman's ear, first I would whisper for him to walk into the sea. Just go. Like, because we need a different flavor at the forefront of this thing. And I feel like the current crop of Silicon Valley executives are very uncreative and very unlearned when it comes to anything approaching the humanities or like how people live or sociology. And, no matter how many pairs of glasses they put on Zuckerberg's face, I'm not going to wear them, and we need a different kind of person leading these industries. And the reason I say that is because Silicon Valley is so much infatuated with good ideas being enough. And the AI world is very appealing to them because now I don't need people all I need is a rad idea. And if your idea is like, taxis that cost more, you can make that happen, right? Whatever like VC hit of the last 15 years is very easily conceived VC money at a 10x lower investment and a 10x higher return. And, but okay, so if that is like the end goal, what do I need VC money for? Right? Like I did some napkin math and like Uber made $12 billion last year. If someone gave me $10 million, I could start Uber in one city and pay my drivers $200 an hour. And if I didn't have to pay the top 600 executives any money, because AI now runs the C-level, every driver would make $200 an hour.
How would you pay the investors back then?
I would need to, right? Because the investors would be paid back in 13 months at a 15% return, which is better than any stock return outside of a unicorn.
All right.
So I can sell like a bond for $12 million. Heck, I can probably get a $12 million loan for 24 months if I gave up my dreams of owning a house or whatever. And I would pay myself back in 18 months. And the reason I do this is because I can turn the profits 100% back into the company. And I can grow the company with those profits while keeping pay stabilized, also I can get rid of surge pricing. I would get rid of surge pricing. I would cap rides to the cost of inflation and that $200 rate and the cost of gas and insurance. So like that $200 would pay for your gas and insurance and all that. And maybe, we can help people get an insurance plan if they want to cash in for that because I don't know. Would you rather work for Uber for $34 an hour or me for $200 an hour? If it's the exact same experience.
Absolutely no brainer by any means. So I think we have a challenge here. So if there's any VCs that are watching.
I don't. The great thing is I don't have to work with VCs. So if there's anyone like with $1,200 under their mattress, that's not a VC. Feel free to get in touch.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So if you want to take that risk, Peter's there, and we could definitely create a case on that. So this has been great. Peter, why don't you tell me where people can find you if they have any questions?
You can reach my consultancy at peoplemakeitbetter.com. because I believe they do. And we post in all the hot social networks like LinkedIn and Blue Sky. And you can reach out to me. I'm available for one-on-one consulting, for training. I love to hear about novel use cases, even if you're not a customer. So if you have a question or problem, feel free to email me via the contact form on our site.
All right, perfect. Thanks a lot, Peter, for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot for watching this video. My name is Jeffrey Powers. You can find me over at geekazine.com or youtube.com/geekazine, where you can like, subscribe, comment, and hit that bell notification so you know when the next video comes out. I'd like to thank Peter Swimm for being on the show here. And of course, if you would like to be interviewed, all you have to do is contact me over at geekazine.com. Till next time, you guys geek out and AI on.